He was a man, they say he was simple. He took less than a day had time. You could see in his eyes just what he lived for. So it's really awesome when you get snow because you can track things. Boy, this critter was busy. It's a super highway here. You can see here all the tracks, and now we just have to follow them to see what this critter is. Well, I can see we met at an intersection here where some went off one way and some went off another way. Amazing. Well, I know what this is, and this is the time of year for it. Ah, there we go. Amazing. Oh, I'm not supposed to show you this. They're mating. It's the mating season for pine cones. Well, we'll take a look anyways. That's what Trapline Talk's all about, right? Figuring it out. Check this out. The coyotes have been walking in the snow out towards my beaver trap. Probably they smell the castor. Very interesting, you know. A little bit of snow just shows you everything. Well, I'm out on the trap line here trying to make it to my traps, but there's a roadblock because it's been so windy that there must be a tree down. I have to turn around. Good morning, Trapline Talk. Trapper Dan here out on the tripped off trapline. Yes, it's rare, but I don't have any trap set right now. I had to make a trip to Vermont and see my parents and visit some friends and family, and I tripped everything off before I left, and I haven't been able to reset. But I am right now out on the trap line collecting the last 2 cameras I had left out. So we'll have some fun trail camera footage coming up probably. Speaking of that, here's some footage that I had from the camera at the farm. Check this out. These coyotes don't want to walk on the hay set. Check out how they just circle around the edge, and even at one point one of these coyotes, you know, puts 2 feet on the hay and then sort of stomps down, and when he runs away he runs right around the back of the hay. The foxes just go right in and get caught, but there's something about that trap circle in that hay that the coyotes don't like. So I learned something there from the cameras. Next year I'm going to set some traps really well hidden, really well bedded right on the edge of the hay and see how that works, because honestly they're curious enough to walk around the edge, so let's get them right there. So this episode is a longer one, and that is because we have a special guest, Mark Charpentier, and I found this fascinating. So hang in there with me and let's go talk to Mark. He's one of these rare guys who has made trapping his lifestyle. He's a full-time trapper in many different ways with a ton of experience, and I feel so fortunate to have trapped him in my fur shed and had this talk with him. Hey, Trapline Talk. Trapper Dan here, and Mark Charpentier, is it Charpentier?
Charpentier.
Charpentier. Je parle français, I speak French, and I even got that wrong. He doesn't know I'm really good at trapping trappers.
Yeah, you got me.
Last week I had Environmental Conservation Officer Mark Walmsley in here.
Oh, okay.
And we did a talk about, what he does. I think my first interview was Mike Bobber. You know Mike? Mm-hmm. I had him over at the Groenwald fur truck buying and cornered him at his truck. And anyway, so I've told my viewers about you and have been excited to have you here. Mark, may not remember this, but my short story is that And I am short in this video, aren't I? I'm on the
the
ice fishing bucket, you know. So my story is, I'm from Vermont, and growing up, my first exposure to trapping was climbing a tree in the backyard of my best friend's house. His name was Jim Salingo, and his dad was Joe Salingo. And I was in this tree, and I'm like, what are these things? So Joe had all his traps hanging in the tree. He must have probably just waxed and dyed them, and I was probably like 11 or 12 years old. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? So he was a great outdoorsman. Actually, Joe helped me, skin my first squirrel, and my dad wasn't an outdoorsman, so he was kind of my mentor. And then in high school, I remember my friend saying he got his new basketball shoes from selling muskrats from his Trapline. I was like, what? And I'm schlepping newspapers for 16 bucks a week. He was getting like $12 a rat. I was like, what the heck? So I always wanted to do this, but typically, I didn't have anyone around me to get started, and I became a busy pastry chef, and my whole life took over. But now I'm like one of these rare guys in his late 40s, early 50s, wanted to start this. And about 7 years ago, I went onto Facebook Marketplace to try to find some trapping supplies, and lo and behold, you had a post there. So I drove up to your house. You hooked me up with a bunch of used MB 550s, and I was telling Mark, also known as Chappy, before I left, he had me signed up for the New York State Trapping Association. He had, Mark June's lure in my pocket, and I was just like, wow, that guy was cool. And I could see that he built a lifestyle around trapping. So he is the host of The Complete Trapper. He traps in multiple states. He has an animal control business. So let's talk about you. How did you get into this?
Well, it started when I was fairly young, early teens in that time frame. It was just something that I was interested in, and I had an uncle that did a little bit. And I had a neighbor. I didn't have any really, none of my parents or anybody real, that I went out on the trap line with. I kind of had to learn it all right from the get-go, but it was just in my blood, I guess.
Yeah.
And, so I started some of my first, like coyotes and I caught. I was, fortunate enough to be in an area in Nebraska where we had a lot of room, and on our family ranch there. So that's kind of how I got started in that. I had a neighbor that, fed me magazines and kept my interest up, telling me stories from the 70s and 80s when he bought trucks with his coyote and checks. And,
yeah. Like those sneakers turned into trucks.
yeah. And, so we trapped around, prior to calving season and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of the Sandhills in Nebraska too, a lot of guys, back then, a lot of people had dogs. A lot of people ran hounds out of trucks too.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite so many anymore.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that on YouTube too. Where,
Yeah.
How long have you had the animal damage control business? And by the way, what's the name of it? And we'll put it up.
Catskill ADC.
Okay.
All right. I've had it about 25 years now.
Wow.
So, and that kind of, after I moved out here to New York from Nebraska, and I started doing a little trapping out here, just, in my pastime. And then before you know it, I had people asking, and besides beaver or coyote, all of a sudden it just started rolling into squirrels and skunks and bats and birds. And,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of all happened. And I started kind of doing that as a little side gig. And then did that for quite a few years. And then 04, 05, I went back in the military after 9/11. And while I was in Iraq in my spare time, I put a business plan and everything together. And then when
Amazing.
I came back in the fall of 05, I just kind of put that business plan into place, and I, started doing this, full time.
Wow, that's awesome. So, Chappy's pretty rare. He's one of these guys who diversified to do what he has passion for. Obviously you're, into the outdoors. You're into specifically fur harvest. I've seen on the Complete Trapper, your pictures of trapping out in Wyoming, is it?
Yes, sir.
And I think you're actually a resident of Wyoming now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And out there, that's a predator control situation, or?
Yeah, I'm fairly fortunate there. I had started going back there probably about 9 years ago. I still had family there, my parents and uncles. And so I'd go back there in between, the sandhills in Nebraska and Wyoming. I'd go back there to hunt and do some trapping, and got in a section of northeast Wyoming, and unbelievably, there wasn't a lot of locals or anything doing it. They have a pretty aggressive predator program in Wyoming.
Right.
You have multiple levels. The federal USDA works, and then you also have county trappers. With the predator board and stuff. So they stay on them year round out there. There's usually every week I see planes or helicopters. They run,
Wow.
and so they stay on them pretty good. It's a fairly remote area, so to protect livestock interest and big game.
Right.
That's become with outfitting and that's a decent income for the ranchers and that. So I kind of got on ranch there, and before I knew it, it was a point that I was starting to say no. Because I just had so many other surrounding ranchers that, I was very fortunate that I was able to come out there and had the support of them.
Yeah.
And, they've all helped out in different ways through costs and things like that to be able to make it work.
Right.
So that's kind of how that happened. It's to a point where I just really can't take any more on, without, taking away from the ranchers that I currently service. So.
Now, me and our viewers can kind of understand this. What is it that you take on? Is it like how many thousands of acres, or is it hundreds of acres, or?
Yeah, it's probably close to around 175,000 to 150,000 acres with those combined places.
Wow.
And then there's also, there's leased ground too that the ranchers have too that are leased ground, whether it's BLM,
right,
or school sections and stuff like that too that, they run livestock on. So, they're fortunately now this large chunk is all interconnected. Yeah. So to actually even run them all, it's actually 3 days. So I work out of one base in the central ranch. So, so it kind of works. We have a house. We have our own place now in Moorcroft, Wyoming. Yeah. And then I go up to Gillette, and north of Gillette is some of the area that I work. And, we'll go up there and stay. And I stay actually right up there at the ranch, and we're able to work 3 different days out of that out of that place. But to cover them all, it takes.
See, my dream is to be his trapping hand. When I first met him, I actually said, "Is there anything like an intern position around here? I'll just stay in the shed and skin all your coyotes, and that's how I'll start learning."
Well, I like to share because that's very important for us all to keep trapping.
Yeah.
We got to keep the organizations going. We have to share it. And modern, it's evolved, and you had to evolve with it.
Yes.
The techniques, how we approach the public, how we share what we do. There's shifting back and forth between the commerce end of it and the money that's involved. That protects, that gives us rights to trap because of money. Right. Obviously, money rules everything. Yeah. And then you have, the whole biological side of it, of managing the wildlife and things like that as well. Right. So you have that, and you're trying to balance that all in with public opinion. And, the modern, we've evolved, our techniques have evolved, our equipment's evolved.
Yeah, definitely.
You can take, some of the older time trappers out west that made some, like Glenn Sterling and that came up with trap modifications, and Dobbins and Peterson. Some of these things they did that have evolved the equipment in traps now, where, you can darn near get a box of, a dozen traps, open them up, put your trap tags on them, and go trap.
Yeah.
And that's just due to the work of all those and the necessity of creating efficient equipment that holds the animals, creates less damage. And, it's kind of the modern stuff has just evolved.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, just in what Chappy just said, I have like 5 million questions. I'm like question man. But do you get to use cable restraints out in Wyoming, or?
I don't use cable restraints. I use snares.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I run everything as killer snares out there.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. So mostly cam locks with, kill springs on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me also, and you just sort of alluded to that. Did you say you have it's like a 48-hour check? You said 3-day.
Well, you have a 72-hour check in
Wow.
Wyoming. That's
Okay.
why I'm able to run a 3-day rotation.
Right. Okay. So what he's saying is he's checking one line one day, the next line the next day, the next line the next day, and then going back to line one again.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, I think we're going to condense down a little bit probably this next season, and we're probably going to get in where we're going to run 2 days and a day off, because especially with the lower fur prices, it's hard to justify fur handling. So when I'm running 3-day rounds like this and I'm running hard, I use a skinner just to help keep up on things.
Okay.
Because bottom line is you start in the dark and you finish in the dark.
Using a skinner, is that a person or
Yes,
equipment?
yes, I hire someone to put up the fur.
Okay, see,
Yep.
that's me.
Yeah, so I'll do that, and that's worked out usually, pretty good. Because you just
can't
when the
keep-
fur prices are up, I'm better off just trapping.
Yeah, exactly.
But when the fur prices get low and that, so now it's a matter of me kind of condensing down to my ranchers, make sure I'm still providing them, the service that they're wanting.
Yes.
What their results are going to be.
Yes.
And still pulling enough predators off of their places to keep that population level.
Right.
And then on my 3rd day now, we're back at our place, in town, and I'm able to handle all my fur and catch up and do it myself.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
So.
At the same time, your business in New York is still running.
It is. Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I have a pretty good, my lead tack that runs things when I'm gone and out of town.
Yeah.
All right, so I kind of turn the reins over to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he maintains that. We start to slow down a little bit because it is getting into, the end of October,
A little off season.
November, December. I just got back. Well, I came back out here east for the holidays and to, catch up on some work and stuff here. But, otherwise I've been in Gillette for the past 3 months prior.
Yeah. Wow. So I have so many questions, but one is, any wolves? Any wolves out there?
We really don't have any that stay in that corner of the state. In the past 6 years, I've cut tracks twice.
Mm-hmm.
We have quite a few lions in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and you mentioned also about the pricing. I was going to ask you that because I think when I first started watching Chappy, Western Coyote was a pretty good price, and last year I think it tanked, right?
Yeah, it's been two
seasons.
years now. I still have a lot of coyotes sitting up at Fur Harvesters auction in Canada that are just sitting there.
Yeah, and so what was the typical average price you had before this happened?
Oh, there's some past years, I was averaging probably close to 100, 80 to 100.
Wow.
And that when we were up at that higher end.
Yeah. And how about now? What's it? They're not.
I'm
not
happy
selling?
to sell them. All right. I did sell some. I did send a few to Idaho sale with my cats earlier, that last auction. That's a really good organization out there, and they run a really good auction. And they average right around 30. And they were some of the better coyotes. I just pulled some out, and I was sending my cats. I need to finish filling the box, so I stuffed some coyotes in there that I had already put up to and sent them just to see how they do, and that was fine. So, we'll see. This next month we have an FHA sale coming up. We'll see. Hopefully, maybe the coyotes will start to move a little bit. If they do, I think it's gonna. I still don't think we have much of a market for them.
Yeah, it's too bad. On my last episode, we actually threw some clips in from Gary Groenwald, and he was, showing us how they use the trim and how many trim pieces you can get out of a coyote and what they're looking for in coyote fur. And one of the things that they said, which was, kind of new, because for the last 10 years, it's been Western coyote, Western coyote, Western coyote, softer, full fur, lighter colors, nicer on a coat. And what they said at the end of the video, though, was encouraging for Eastern trappers, is they said, really the main thing they're looking for is heft. They want your hand should disappear in the fur when you're going back and forth in there. And that even Easterns, hopefully if you get full fur, you can get something. But, it seems like everybody wants to trap coyotes. It's just one of those animals
They're kind of like the big game that's accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
Not everybody can get to wolves. Not everybody lives in a state where they could trap lions.
Yeah.
But so the coyotes kind of become the big game, and they're the evil. They're the villain.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, the first guy who taught me trapping is John Labotsky. He trapped here, I don't know, 50 years ago. I'm going to be interviewing John soon because he's 98 years old now. But when he was trapping, there wasn't any coyotes here.
Yeah.
The coyotes came in the midst of his trapping.
I would love if they weren't here at all. I'd be much happier with just these guys. And,
Yeah.
I get enough coyotes out west that I could care less. And your coyotes here too, yeah. And I mean, when the market's up, you were able to move some and that. But, you just get so many that are so coarse and they're in such bad shape that, we need to take some,
Right.
And here you're protecting people's backyard pets.
Yeah.
It's not like we have large sheep ranches or anything here we're protecting.
Right.
But as far as your wild game, like your deer and, people's pets and stuff like that, it helps around here. But, I mean, a lot of them you're going to toss.
Yeah.
You'll probably toss the 30-year coyotes here because they ain't going to be worth putting up. And,
Exactly. And so we have one here that I'm hoping that Chappy's going to help me put up to teach me. So my story is for, my 7 years or so trapping. John, my first teacher, hooked me up with a taxidermist. So we sold everything the first few years just to the taxidermist, and they had like a 50-year relationship, so he didn't even question it. He's like, that John wants to sell me stuff, so I trapped it all, and John, sold it to him, and we actually just saved the money for our club for, helping starting a trapping group. But then, like last year, I just sold everything green to Groenwald, all my beavers, and so it's my first year putting up fur. And how I trapped Chappy into the fur shed here is he put a thing out on Facebook saying he was looking for bobcats. So I was like, well, I have 4 bobcats. One the taxidermist is interested in, the other ones aren't. And we, talk to us a little bit about cats, because I know our cats are not too pretty like Western cats. Why are you interested in my bobcats or anybody around here?
Well, I was looking to, buy fishers and bobcats this year, just because I had a market to go with them.
Gotcha. So
it's just another thing. It's just another trapper-oriented thing that, could create some income. So
gotcha. So
and
you're
and I have bought fur in pastures and stuff here locally. I used to have a full shop laid right out too here, and guys need to have a place to go with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes setting up for a meeting for one day to drop off at a truck or to ship, guys needed other options.
Right.
We lost Warren Crum last year
Mm-hmm.
from Sullivan County, so he was a heck of a fur buyer up there, and we lost him in this area too. So for guys and people that are starting out, and and kids, and it's amazing too, like you mentioned about age, 40s and 50s, just getting into the outdoors. We're seeing that across the board, even hunting.
Yeah.
That people are coming in and the trappers are like, never did this before, or maybe they did it a little bit, or they knew an uncle, and now all of a sudden they've reached an age and they have the time to do it.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that, but we need somewhere to go with the fur, because if it's a usable resource, we want to be able to use it too. So if they're able to get their hands on equipment and stuff and get what they need to be able to get some of the basic techniques and stuff to be successful,
mm-hmm.
and then be able to work through that and put out a product and be able to sell it and maybe see some return, or at least get to see that their stuff goes on to get used, then we're more likely to keep those trappers involved and keep them going forward. And we need numbers to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've often told you guys that this is an investment for me. And mainly what I get out of trapping is physical and mental wellness. Like it's just my day. I love going out in the morning on the trap line. It just makes my day. And so I've got more money into it than I'm getting out of it for sure. But, beating that balance and, having opportunities to sell and possibly getting better at what I'm doing to make my fur maybe more valuable. Those are just like all the little icing on the cake things. So, I really appreciate Chappy getting trapped in my shed here, and we both probably have work to do. So what I would like to do is, I did want to mention also, because in the last episode you guys saw Owen. Owen caught his first raccoon this week, and he is a teenager that I've kind of mentored for a couple of years, and he went to the elite trapping seminar. I think he was like the star guy there because everyone was like, this guy's 18 years old. He's the most important guy here. We got to get him in. And by the end of the seminar, you gave him a bunch of traps. So that was awesome. Thank you. And Owen was so excited yesterday. Like, he got the raccoon. And you know, the thing about it is he didn't just put a trap out and get a raccoon. He figured out why he wasn't getting the raccoon, and he adjusted, and then he got it. And I felt like, you know, that's when you really learn, when you watch the animals and you learn what they're doing and you make adjustments. So he had a DP that wasn't working, so he put a foothold near it, ended up getting him on the foothold because he knew he was coming close. And so we hung it up here and skinned it, and you know, he's hooked.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah,
and you learn a lot. You can learn a lot more from the ones you miss.
Yeah.
Times than the ones you catch. When you get there and it's all tore up, and like, great, I caught him.
Right.
A lot of times, them ones you miss, and you see what happened in the snow or what occurred and what happened at your set and how they worked it and things like that. Sometimes you learn a lot. Like the rest of life, you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you do your successes.
Exactly. You know, Jeff Dunlap says that all the time on trapping radio. He's like, the best trappers, they don't think they're the best. The best trappers are the ones who are like, I can always get better, I can always learn, and I make mistakes just like everybody.
I've been doing it since I've been young, and I still learn stuff all the time. And like you said, when you're out there, you're just, if this is your thing, you're just in your own little world.
Yeah.
The rest of it isn't there. It's not clouded. You're trapping, and
yeah,
it's what you do, and you see the whole world for what it is, and how the animals react and interact, and the relationship with them, and you learn them, and but like
nothing like it.
I definitely talk a little bit about the elite.
Let's talk about that.
Like you said, with Owen coming, and you've been there, and you know, it's a really good way to start. I did hand off the New York Elite to Charlie Lamb here in New York, because of me spending so much time now in Wyoming.
Yeah.
It was something that I wanted to see keep going. And the whole idea of the New York Elite Trapping Seminar, when we first came up with the idea, was I wanted to create something that was an intermediate type training thing that would occur beyond people just getting their state trapping course,
right?
Where you go in and learn the
Which
basic
you don't
regulations.
even have to do that now. You can do it online.
And you
which
don't
is get terrible.
Yeah, I wish there are definitely some changes there that should be made, but my opinion don't matter a whole lot up there in Albany.
Well,
but
Kevin Walmsley was the same. We talked about it. He was like, I'm not a fan. You know, like, and you know, you get connections to. I remember my state trapping teacher, and when he walked out, he was like, call me. You know, you have any questions, and I did. You know, and that you would not get that if you're just doing a thing online.
That's right. Yeah. So I kind of handed that baton off to Charlie Lamb, and he's going to continue to push that forward. So I know he's planning that, I believe, for Central New York this year. Wow. Probably back out in the Finger Lakes region, from what I understand.
Okay.
So who the lineup will be and who the instructors and everything will be, I don't think that's all solid, but I'm sure we'll be hearing something soon.
Yeah.
From that. But that's a great opportunity, for somebody to come, and you're going to pick up some advanced stuff too. So regardless of your experience level, I expect that you're going to take something out of it. And this was, again, that bridge to get guys out in and get them successful. So hopefully they continue to trap for years down the road, and success helps make that happen.
Yeah. I was telling Chappy, I definitely became a better trapper after taking the elite trapping seminar. Really opened my mind to, and it's hard to even put in words. You know, I made all these notes the whole week on my phone, and I shared the notes with other guys, and I'm like, it's just the way I approached it. I felt a lot more confident. Tommy Bryant, I felt like he was like the coyote whisperer. Like, he really, we did some sets, and then the guys would critique them, and the little things that he did to my set to change them are little things that I do now, that I got from him. And of course, Jeff Haggerty, I've been talking about him all season with the chain slides. I used a few chain slides because my traps were near some homes, and I wanted to get my catch, out of sight, and that was pretty cool. And the other thing about the elite trapping seminars is, dang affordable, right?
Yes.
Like
that was my intent. I didn't want to price people out of it, and you know, I mean, most of the courses that are out there, and this is, you know, 2 full days with all your food and everything provided. And usually we even provide a place for you to camp out or something like that. But the idea is we don't want to price people out of it.
Yeah.
But, and then at the same time, we're hoping to make a little bit off of it. And then we're able to donate that money back to the Trapping Association.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
it's not really centered around profit or anything like that.
Right.
And, you know, there's a couple years when we kind of went in the, you know,
Uh-oh.
the red and went
Yeah.
the wrong way. And,
Yeah.
you know, I sucked it up and we made it through and we kept her going.
Yeah.
But, you know, last year was great. I mean, last year it made $2,700 for New York State Trappers after
Awesome.
we had all the expenses. So
Awesome.
that money will end up going to NYSTA.
28. Man,
29.
it seemed like we split up
Yeah.
in 3 groups.
It was our
so hard.
second. It was our second biggest one. The first
Okay.
one we ever had, you know, the first original one 8 years ago was the biggest one.
Cool.
Yeah, this was the second biggest we ever had was 23.
The way that they worked that and why I didn't really realize it was only 23 is because they broke us up into groups and we got to spend half a day with some instructors and then we'd flip and go the other half a day. And I ended up being one of those schmucks who forgot to bring any waiters. And so Gary, shout out to Gary, he's a ADC guy up in near Albany, was my truck driver, and he said, "Here, you can use mine," you know. So now that's another thing that happened at the seminar. I got some friends, you know. So
Oh, sure.
Gary and I and Mike Bobber and I were texting all the time and sharing what's going on, you know, on our trap lines and stuff. So awesome. Let's have you critique what I've done here in my first year of putting up fur. You, my friend, have had too much screen time. I know it's been riveting and you've been trapped here, but you need to twist out. You need to get the heck out of here. Go love your family, get to work, and as my mom would say, gosh darn it, get outside. Right? So hit subscribe. Catch me on the next one when Chappy chews me out on my fur handling and I get him to work a bit on putting up a coyote. Remember, trappers snore. Sustainable, natural, organic, and renewable resource.